Hold my bag while I go dance with him, she said about a guy at the club. I left the bag with security and went home. Packed everything I owned and left a note. You can dance with whoever you want now. She came home at 3 a.m. to an empty apartment and spent the rest of the night calling me. She showed up at my job the next day begging me to come home. Security escorted her out. Hey viewers, before we move on to the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you want to see more stories like this. Thanks. The garlic and onions sizzled as I tossed them in the pan. The sound a comfortable, familiar soundtrack to our Friday night. From the bedroom, I could hear Qley humming along to some playlist, the thump of a drawer closing, the rustle of fabric. This was our ritual. I'd cook, she'd get ready, and we'd go out with her friends. It was fine. I wasn't a huge club guy, but I liked seeing her happy, watching her light up a room. She appeared in the kitchen doorway, a silhouette against the bedroom light. She was already in her going-out clothes, a little black dress that left little to the imagination. Her eyes scanned me, from my worn but clean sneakers to the simple gray Henley I'd thrown on. You're not wearing that, are you? She asked, her head tilting. It wasn't a real question. It was a critique wrapped in a vaguely amused tone. I gave the pan another shake. It's what I always wear. It's fine. It's fine, she echoed, the word landing with the weight of a dull thud. Just make sure you wear the dark wash jeans, at least. Not the faded ones. They make you look like you're trying too hard to look like you're not trying. I nodded, swallowing the slight irritation. This was just Qley. She had standards. I used to think it was because she wanted me to look my best. Now, sometimes, it just felt like I was a project that was perpetually behind schedule. An hour later, we were swallowed by the bass. The club, Axis, was a pulsating organism of colored lights and sweating bodies. The air was thick with perfume and the sweet smell of spilled cocktails. I'd secured us a spot near the bar, 2 drinks in hand, while Qley texted furiously, presumably coordinating with her friend Sarah. Sarah's running late. She shouted over the music, not looking up from her phone. No problem, I shouted back. I tried to make conversation, leaning in close to her ear. Did you see the game today? Incredible finish. She pulled back slightly, giving me a look that was part pity, part annoyance. Alex, no one cares about sports in here. Read the room. She went back to her phone. I took a long swallow of my beer, the hops doing little to cut through the sudden bitterness. I scanned the room, feeling the familiar out-of-place sensation I always got in these places. That's when I saw him. He was at the opposite end of the bar, all styled hair and a tight shirt that showed off a gym-built physique. He was looking directly at Qley, a confident, lazy smirk on his face. And she was looking back. It wasn't a glance. It was a connection. A slow, knowing smile spread across her lips, and she gave a tiny, almost imperceptible nod. My stomach tightened. No, come on. Don't do this. I told myself I was being paranoid. She was just being friendly. But then I saw his eyes flicker to me, and the smirk didn't fade. It widened, as if he'd just won a bet I didn't know we were playing. My hand tightened around my glass. Qley finally put her phone away and took a sip of her vodka cranberry. She was watching him over the rim of her glass. The bass kept thumping, a mocking, rhythmic heartbeat to my dawning horror. You okay? I asked, my voice tighter than I intended. Yeah, fine, she said, her eyes still elsewhere. The guy, let's call him Mark, he looked like a mark, pushed off from the bar and started weaving through the crowd toward us. This was it, the confrontation. My mind raced. What would I say? What would he say? But he didn't stop to talk to me. He stopped right next to Qley, leaning in to speak directly into her ear. She threw her head back and laughed, a real, genuine laugh I hadn't heard from her in months. She placed a hand on his arm. A cold clarity began to wash over me, numbing the edges of the anger and humiliation. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a choice. Then, she turned to me. The look on her face wasn't guilt or shame. It was pure, unadulterated entitlement. She shoved her small, sequined clutch purse into my hands. Here, hold my bag. I'm going to go dance with him. She nodded toward Mark, who was now openly smirking at me, enjoying the show. The world seemed to narrow to that single point. The feel of the cheap sequins under my fingers. The weight of the bag. It wasn't just a bag. It was a symbol. I was the bag holder, the placeholder, the reliable, boring boyfriend whose primary function was to hold her things while she went off to find her fun. My voice felt foreign in my throat. Qley, seriously? You're with me? She rolled her eyes, that dismissive, smug smile firmly in place. It was the most devastating expression I'd ever seen. Oh, relax, Alex. It's just a dance. Don't be so boring. She leaned in, her voice dropping to a condescending whisper. It's not like you know how to move anyway. And with that, she turned her back on me. She took Mark's offered hand, and he led her onto the dance floor, immediately pulling her close. I stood there, holding the stupid bag. The noise of the club faded into a dull roar in my ears. I looked at the bag in my hand. I looked at her, laughing as Mark spun her, his hands on her hips. I saw the way she looked at him, with a spark I'd been trying to ignite in her for a year. The confusion and pain crystallized into something else, a cold, hard, and absolute certainty. The switch had flipped. I wasn't angry anymore. I was free. Without another moment of hesitation, I turned and walked away from the bar, toward the hulking shape of a security guard near the entrance. The bag felt insignificant now, just an object to be disposed of. Excuse me, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. The guard looked down at me, his face impassive. I held out the clutch. A woman in a black dress gave me this. She's over there dancing. I gestured vaguely toward the swirling lights. Can you please make sure she gets it? I'm leaving. The guard's eyes flickered from the bag to my face. He saw the whole story written there. He gave a slow, almost imperceptible nod of understanding. Sure thing, man, he said, taking the bag. I turned and walked out of the club. The silence of the night street was deafening, and it was the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard. The club doors swung shut behind me, slicing off the thumping bass like a guillotine. The sudden silence was a physical presence, cool and heavy against my skin. I stood on the sidewalk for a moment, the city lights blurring into streaks of color as my eyes adjusted. I took a deep breath, expecting the sting of the night air to hurt, but it didn't. It felt clean. It felt like my first real breath in years. I didn't run. I walked. Each step away from that place was a deliberate, measured act of reclaiming myself. The image of Qley in that guy's arms flashed in my mind, but it was distant now, like a scene from a bad movie I'd just walked out of. The humiliation was there, a hot ember in my gut, but it was smothered by this new, overwhelming sensation, clarity. I hadn't lost a fight. I'd simply stopped participating in a game I never agreed to play. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Once, twice. I didn't need to look to know it was her. Where are you? Or are you seriously leaving? I let it buzz. The sound was an anchor trying to drag me back to a ship I'd already abandoned. I kept walking, the rhythm of my footsteps on the pavement a more honest beat than anything in that club. I hailed a cab. The driver grunted an address I knew by heart, but it didn't feel like home anymore. It was just an apartment, a location, a problem to be solved. The key turned in the lock with a definitive click. I stepped inside and the silence of my empty apartment greeted me. It still smelled like the dinner I'd cooked, the garlic and onions now a sad, ghostly reminder of a normality that was already a lifetime away. Her perfume hung in the air, too, a floral scent that suddenly felt cloying and artificial. I didn't turn on the main lights. I went to the kitchen and switched on the small under-cabinet lamp, casting the room in a dim, functional glow. I grabbed a trash bag from under the sink, the plastic rustling loudly in the quiet. This wasn't a rage-filled purge. It was a surgical extraction. I started in the living room. The bookshelf. My college textbooks, my favorite thrillers, my book on coding I'd been meaning to read. They went into a cardboard box I'd flattened and stored in the closet. I left her romance novels and her interior design magazines perfectly aligned. I took the framed photo of us from the hiking trip. My smile looked forced, hers looked bored. I opened the back, slid the photo out, and tore it in half, dropping her part into the trash bag. My half, I left on the shelf. Let her deal with it. I moved to the bedroom. This was the heart of it. I pulled my large suitcase and a duffel bag from the top of the closet. The bed was still neatly made, the side where I slept barely disturbed. I opened my dresser drawers. Socks, boxers, t-shirts. I didn't fold them with care. I bundled them into compact bricks and packed them tight. My sweaters, my jeans, the dark wash ones she approved of, the faded ones she hated. They all went in. I opened the closet. Her side was a riot of color and texture: dresses, blouses, shoes spilling out. My side was orderly: 5 button-down shirts for work, a few polos, 2 jackets. I took them all, the hangers clacking together like bones. I left the empty space gaping. From the bathroom, I cleared my shelf in the medicine cabinet: deodorant, razor, toothpaste. I left the half-used tube of the fancy brand she liked. I took the shampoo I used, the soap. It was like erasing evidence of my own existence, piece by piece. The final corner was my office nook in the corner of the bedroom. My laptop, its charger, my external hard drive. I unplugged the gaming console I'd bought, the one she'd roll her eyes at. A little immature, don't you think, Alex? The cords coiled into the box like sleeping snakes. As I worked, a memory surfaced, unbidden. The day we moved in. We'd painted this room together, a soft gray she'd picked out. We'd gotten paint on our clothes, laughed about it, ordered pizza, and eaten it on the floor, surrounded by boxes. We'd been a team, or at least I thought we were. Now, I was just a guy quietly dismantling the set of a play that had long since ended. When the last box was sealed, when the last zipper was closed, I did one final walkthrough. The apartment was a ghost of itself. My ghost. There was a hollow space where my things used to be, a negative image that screamed of absence. It was more powerful, more articulate than any shouting match could ever be. I found a notepad and a pen in a kitchen drawer. I stood there, the pen poised. What was there left to say? All the anger, the pain, the questions, they were baggage I was refusing to carry. I would not give her a novel of my hurt for her to dissect with her friends. I would not give her anything she could use. The words came, simple and final. You can dance with whoever you want now. Don't call me. I propped it against the lamp on my bare nightstand. It wasn't cruel. It wasn't kind. It was a statement of fact, a transfer of ownership for the freedom she so clearly desired. I hefted my suitcase in one hand, the duffel bag over my shoulder, a box of essentials under my arm. I took one last look at the hollowed-out space that was no longer my home. Then I switched off the kitchen light, plunging it into darkness. I closed the door behind me, the latch sliding home with a soft, final click. I didn't look back. The hallway was empty. The building was silent. I walked out into the night, the weight of my belongings feeling infinitely lighter than the weight of the life I had just walked away from. The motel room was a study in beige. Beige walls, beige curtains, a beige bedspread that smelled faintly of bleach and loneliness. It was perfect. It was silent. I dropped my bags by the door, the finality of the thud a satisfying period on the sentence of my old life. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt empty, but it was a clean emptiness, a hollowed-out space ready to be filled with something new, something that was entirely mine. I plugged my phone into the charger on the nightstand. The screen lit up, a barrage of notifications flooding the display. I didn't read them. I just watched the numbers on the digital clock shift from 1:17 a.m. to 1:18. The silence was a balm. Then, the screen blazed to life, vibrating with a harsh, insistent buzz. Qley. The picture was from happier times, her head thrown back in laughter. I felt nothing. I let it ring. The voicemail notification popped up almost instantly. A part of me, the part that had been trained for 3 years to soothe her, to fix things, urged me to listen. To explain, I silenced it. I placed the phone face down on the nightstand, the vibrations now a muffled, angry beat trapped under glass. It buzzed again, and again. Curiosity, or maybe just the need to fully close the coffin, won out. I put the first voicemail on speaker, my arms crossed as I stared out the window at the neon sign of a 24-hour diner across the street. Beep. Where are you? What the hell? All your stuff is gone. This isn't funny. Are you seriously this pathetic that you just run away? Call me back, Alex. Now. Her voice was a whip crack of confusion and anger. No remorse. Just indignation that I had dared to disrupt her narrative. I deleted it. The next one came 15 minutes later. The tone had shifted. Beep. Okay, I get it, you're mad. I'm sorry, okay? It was just a dance. You're overreacting. This is insane. You can't just pack up and leave. We live together. Please, just come home so we can talk about this like adults. Just a dance. The words were so insultingly trivial, a desperate attempt to minimize the nuclear bomb she had dropped on our relationship. She wasn't sorry for what she did. She was sorry I had reacted. I deleted it. The third voicemail was the longest. It came around 3:45 a.m. The club would be closed. She'd be home, truly alone in that half-empty apartment for the first time. Beep. A shaky, wet inhale. The guy was a creep, Alex. A total creep. He left with someone else an hour after you did. I'm alone. I'm scared. I need you. Her voice broke into a sob. Please, baby, I'm so sorry. I read your note. Please don't do this. You're my person. I love you. Please, just come home. I can't be here alone. There it was. The consequences served ice cold. The fun she had chosen had revealed its true, hollow nature. The knight in gym armor was just a troll, and now, the stability she had taken for granted was gone. Her tears were real, but they weren't for me. They were for her own comfort, which had suddenly vanished. I felt a distant, academic pity, the kind you might feel for a character in a tragedy, but no urge to rescue, no urge to fix it. I deleted the voicemail, muted my phone, and went to sleep. The silence was profound. The next morning, I walked into my office building at 8:15 a.m., right on time. I wore a clean, simple button-down. I'd gotten a coffee. On the surface, I was the picture of normalcy. Inside, I was a fortress. My coworker, Dave, glanced up from his desk. Rough night? You look tired. I gave a small, genuine smile. Just a late one. Feeling good today, actually. And I was. The world had a new, sharp clarity to it. The work on my screen made sense. The chatter of the office was just background noise, not a distraction. It was around 10:30 a.m. when the commotion started. A raised voice at the reception desk down the hall, faint but unmistakable. Her voice. My spine straightened, but I didn't look up. I focused on the line of code I was debugging. The sound got closer, accompanied by the firm, low tones of Brenda, the head of security. My office door was open. A shadow fell across my desk. I looked up. Qley stood there, framed in my doorway. She looked destroyed. Her makeup was smudged under her eyes. Her hair was a mess. And she was still wearing the same little black dress from the night before, now looking wrinkled and pathetic in the harsh fluorescent light. Brenda stood behind her, a hand firmly on her elbow, her face a mask of professional neutrality. Sir, she insisted on seeing you, Brenda said. I told her she needs an appointment. Qley's eyes were wide, red-rimmed pools of pure panic. Alex, she breathed, her voice cracking. I leaned back in my chair, steepling my fingers. It's all right, Brenda. Give us a moment. Brenda looked skeptical but nodded, taking a step back but remaining within earshot. Qley stumbled into my office, her heels clicking unsteadily on the tile. You can't just ghost me, she blurted out, the words trembling. We were together for 3 years. You left me, over a dance. I kept my voice low, calm, and firm. It didn't carry past the doorway. I didn't leave you over a dance, Qley. I left you because you told me exactly who you are. I just believed you. The logic, so simple and unassailable, seemed to short-circuit her brain. The panic in her eyes flickered into something darker, anger. The true colors, emerging now that the tears hadn't worked. So that's it, she hissed, her voice rising. You're just going to throw everything away? You're a coward. You didn't even have the balls to fight for me, to stand there and tell that guy to back off. I didn't flinch. I held her gaze, my own utterly level. There was nothing to fight for, I said, my tone final. Then, I shifted my eyes to Brenda in the hallway. Security? Brenda was inside the room in 2 strides. Ma'am, you need to leave. Now. No. Alex. Please. Qley cried, as Brenda took a firm grip on her arm and began to guide her, not roughly but irresistibly, out of my office. Her protests echoed down the hall, a mix of sobs and curses. You'll regret this. You'll never find anyone like me. You need me. You need me. I watched until they turned the corner, her voice fading away. Then I turned back to my computer screen. The line of code was still there, waiting. A solvable problem. I took a sip of my coffee. It was still warm. The phone on my desk rang, an internal line. It was reception. Alex, so sorry about that. Is everything okay? Everything's fine, I said, and for the first time, I truly, completely meant it. She won't be back. I hung up, placed my hands on the keyboard, and got back to work. The silence in my office was no longer empty. It was peaceful. The following weeks were a study in quiet reclamation. The beige motel room was a temporary cocoon, a neutral space where I could shed the skin of the man I'd been with Qley. I found a real estate agent and, with the cold efficiency of someone who just had his priorities violently clarified, leased a small, modern apartment on the other side of the city. It had high ceilings, large windows, and no memories. It was a blank slate, and I filled it only with things that brought me peace. A comfortable sofa, a bookshelf for my books, a high-quality coffee maker. The silence there wasn't hollow, it was my own. I threw myself into work, not as an escape, but as a channel for the focused energy I now possessed. The code I wrote was cleaner, the solutions more elegant. I started going to the gym, not for the sculpted look of Mark, but for the simple, honest feeling of strength and exhaustion. I reconnected with friends I'd subtly been distanced from, the ones Qley had deemed not worth our time. We watched games, went for beers, and talked about nothing important. It was glorious. I never blocked Qley's number. Blocking her would have been an action, a reaction. It would have meant she still held a piece of my attention. Instead, I simply stopped caring. Her texts became background noise, like a fly buzzing against a window pane. Occasionally noticeable, but utterly insignificant. They shifted from pleading to angry to, finally, desperate attempts to provoke a reaction. Her, I can't believe you're doing this to me. I'm not sleeping. Her, my mom says you're being cruel. She's right. Her, you've trashed my life. I hope you're happy. I read them with the detached interest of an anthropologist studying a strange culture. There was no, I'm sorry for what I did. Only look what you've done to me. It was the final, confirming proof that I had made the right choice. One evening, about 2 months after the night, I was unpacking the last box in my new apartment. It contained a few kitchen items. As I placed a mortar and pestle on the counter, a thing I owned simply because I enjoyed making my own spice rubs, my phone vibrated on the granite countertop. It was from an unknown number, but the area code was one I recognized. Her friend, Sarah. The flying monkey had been deployed. I almost didn't read it, but a sense of finality, of closing the book for good, compelled me. Unknown number. Alex, it's Sarah. Look, I know I shouldn't be involved, but Qley is really, really hurting. She lost her job because she was so upset and couldn't focus. She's a mess. Don't you feel even a little bad? She made a mistake. One mistake. And you've destroyed her. Don't you think you've punished her enough? I stared at the text. There it was again, the same twisted logic. I had destroyed her. My calm exit was a punishment. My refusal to be her emotional caretaker after her betrayal was an act of cruelty. There was no universe in which she was accountable for the chain of events she herself had set in motion. A response wasn't necessary. An explanation would be wasted. But the ghost of the man I used to be, the one who would have felt a guilty knot in his stomach and rushed to fix it, needed one last exorcism. My thumbs moved over the screen, not with anger, but with the cool precision of a surgeon making a final, clean incision. I didn't address the job, the pain, the punishment. I went straight to the core of the original sin. Me. The position of backup plan has been filled. And from the sound of it, so was his. I hit send. Then, I deleted the entire message thread, from her, from Sarah, all of it. I didn't block the number. I simply wiped the slate clean. It was no longer my history. It was clutter. I placed the last item from the box, a small, sleek pepper grinder, next to the stove. I looked around. The apartment was mine. Every choice, every object, every quiet moment was mine. The air was light. The view from the window was of the city skyline, twinkling with infinite, anonymous possibilities. I thought of Qley then, for what I knew would be the last time. Not with anger, not with pain, not even with pity. She was simply a person I used to know, a lesson I had learned. The silence in my new home was no longer just an absence of sound. It was a presence. It was peace. It was exactly what I wanted. And it was mine. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. What do you think about this story? Share it in the comments.